Hello and welcome back to OT the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, and how to spend it. My name is Andy Green.
I'm Felix Schultz. How are you?
Fantastic, Felix. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm going on holiday. I'll be on holiday by the time. No, maybe by the time this airs. I don't know.
Yes. Yes, you will be.
Yeah. So that's. I'm looking forward to that. Getting down to the coast. Hopefully, avoiding spicy cough on the way. And
Surf trip.
yeah, gonna be out there on the boards.
Cowabunga dudes.
Me and Bodie surfing the 100-year wave.
No shoes the whole week.
Oh, too soon. I mean, shoes is a novelty for me, so I'll probably put them on. Hey, tell us about today's guest, Andy.
Today's guest is a repeat offender.
Oh, no.
First appeared on the show in 2020. James McVey from a little band called the Vamps. Last time we had him on, he had a couple of watches. A couple of weeks ago, he messaged me. He said, I got a lot more watches. There's been a fair bit. And he said, I'm not going to come back on until I get my grail. And guess what, Felix? He got his grail, so he's coming back on.
Holy shit.
Yep.
It escalated quickly. That is the power of OT.
Yep. 100%. Probably all our fault.
Yeah, I think we can claim that. Certainly to any of the people that James McVey has bought watches from. It's all on, all on us.
Also, notably, Steve, MVP, Steve's son-in-law, official son-in-law, got married late last year. So,
hang on, MVP is his father-in-law.
Yes, officially his father-in-law.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It was father-in-law to be.
Sure, now he's certified.
Now he's certified. Now it's illegal.
Yep. Cool. Hey, before we get into James, I've got a few things I want to talk about. First of all, let's have a quick chat about one of you and our favourite things, Queer Eye.
Okay, let's do it.
You've watched the most recent series?
Oh, it's a new level. It is a new level of Queer Eye.
I have two things to talk about with you. One of them we've pre-discussed. The other one will be a complete surprise to you, though maybe not. So apparently Angel, our favourite powerlifter, who features in season 3, is now legit friends with Jonathan Van Ness, who has moved to Austin.
Whoa, okay. So season 6, by the way.
What?
It's season 6.
Is it?
Not season 3. Yeah.
Are you counting the weird old 2000s one?
I don't know. If you're watching Netflix, it's season 6.
No way.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Because there's Japan. Yeah, it's season 6.
They're like
the Australian one.
They're not seasons. They're like
I don't know. Season 6 is what
talking about the mainline classic. Anyway. So Jonathan Van Ness, he's moved to Austin. He's like legit friends with Angel, which I find very wholesome and reaffirming about the show. The other thing, more related to OT the podcast, I don't know if you spotted it, but there was a little bit where they were back in their sort of their house, and I think it was Tan France was talking about, how to get the stylish gentleman something, and he had a little, like, would have been a 3-second long scroll on the IWC website. Just a little sponsored content on IWC.com, which I thought was pretty slick from the old Mr. Granger hair. So maybe this is what I'm thinking. Watches and Wonders, interview opportunities, Tan France, ambassador announcement.
I'll take it.
He's going to be our bestie.
Well, we need to hit Omega up for Anthony as well.
Yeah, I mean, he has got some dope watches now.
You know who deserves a watch sponsorship though? Bobby.
What brand would you put Bobby in?
Oh, he's always doing so much, and he's so low key about it. He's not in the limelight enough. What's a real workhorse brand? Something really tough, but
also classy.
Classy like him.
I mean,
he deserves. I'm going to say this. He deserves to be a Rolex ambassador. Put him in there. Put him in the lineup. Move over Federer.
I think Omega could do well. I mean, I did sort of initially go somewhere, but IWC honestly would be a great fit. Like Panerai is probably a bit too OTT.
Too bulky, yeah.
It's a bit of a classic sort of. I'm going to go with Omega.
I like it.
Yeah. Anyway, hey, in other ridiculousness, this is slightly less uplifting news. We don't often talk about crypto bros.
No, we don't.
That's an unofficial policy on OT the podcast, which I'm sure will change when we launch our own cryptocurrency late in 2022. but I need to talk about Spiced Owl. So
Okay.
this is Spiced Owl is a what is it? What are they called? Decentralized autonomous organizations like
Uh-huh.
Crypto Bros, where Crypto Bros hang. And Spiced Out is based around a shared love of Frank Herbert's sci-fi masterpiece Dune.
Mhm.
These guys got in the public eye recently when they bought a book, and it's a legitimately rare book. It's like a sort of a picture book, like a sort of a graphic Bible that Alejandro Jodorowsky in the, I'm going to say 70s or 80s, used to try and shop his version of a movie to Hollywood. So it was
Okay.
like it's kind of like a lookbook, and it's had like
Yep.
a lot of high concept fantasy art, like all what a vision for the film. And so not too many of these books exist. They sell for around 30, 40K. This one was auctioned, I think, at Christie's, had that sort of estimate on it. Crypto Bros dropped 3 million on it. So, and they tweeted it saying, "We won the auction for 2.6 million euro. Our mission is to make the book public to the extent permitted by law, produce an animated, limited series inspired by the book, and sell it to a streaming service, support derivative projects from the community." So they got trolled pretty hard
Mm.
because it appears from this tweet and other things that Crypto Bros think that buying the book means they own the intellectual property in the book.
Yeah, right.
I'm pretty
Why?
who knows, man. Um, so it's but it is actually a little bit more interesting. Like there's a Verge article that I'll link up where they say, well, actually, this could be slightly different because while it's using the intellectual property of Frank Herbert's estate, that
Mm.
I'm sure that the recent Dune filmmakers would strenuously object to. They could say it's been inspired by this, which is maybe a separate work. It's really grey, but I basically want to subscribe to the theory that these crypto bros legitimately thought that buying the object meant they owned the rights to it.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it's wild. I don't understand any of this shit, and it deeply irritates me. Hey, what about you?
I have been. I've been watching Afterlife season 3 that dropped on Netflix maybe a week ago. I
How is
binged
Ricky
it.
Gervais?
I binged it all weekend. It is fantastic, Felix. I don't know. I told you. I said, "Hey, Felix, have you watched this?" He said, "Nah, I couldn't get into it." It is some of his best work. It's better than his stand-up.
Yeah, I have to be in a really specific mood for Ricky Gervais. Like he's a genius, but I find him uh, too hard to watch sometimes.
Yeah, it's not an easy show to watch. Basically, because of the context of
Mm.
the premise, but it is some of his finest work. Like, I was chatting to another mate about it, and we both agree it's better than his stand up. It's top tier, and as the third season, it does show a nice sort of character arch and a lot of growth, which I think you'll appreciate. It's getting pretty wholesome. It's gone from sort of the darker first and second
Mm.
season to something a little bit more interesting and deep.
Did you ever watch Derek?
Couldn't get into it, funnily enough.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh,
Big on the British Office. Big, big, big on the British Office.
because I found Derek really wholesome and uplifting.
Huh. You should
Anyway,
rewatch it, see if it holds up.
yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll go back to the British Office. Like, I don't need to.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know. So Afterlife streaming on Netflix. We'll put
Get
a
around it.
link up to the trailer. Last one before we get into our ad spot and our chat with James.
Mm.
I've done the thing that all the cool kids on the internet are doing, Andy.
Uh-huh.
I'm into Wordle.
What is Wordle?
It's basically like a word guessing game that's.
Okay.
I don't know. You might appreciate this in terms of like, and I'm sure there's some very clever viral marketing behind it because it's not an app, it's not monetized, it's it's a website.
Okay.
And you've got 5 guesses, and you have to guess a 5-letter word, and if you get the right letter in the right space, it gives you a green symbol, and if it's the right letter in the wrong space, you get a yellow
Okay.
symbol. And you might, on social media, you might see those little like blocks of colored squares, and it's vaguely sort of secret languagey until I'm assuming it becomes mainstream enough that they monetize and announce that they're making a Pixar movie. Yeah, I find it fascinating.
Okay.
It's kind of like Foursquare in 2007.
Right. So this is why you've been so busy lately.
Well, that's the only other thing, Andy. There's only one a day.
Okay. Thank
It's
goodness.
that's what am I up to? Let's have a listen to. Let's find out about Artem straps, Andy.
Let's do it.
And now, Andy, time to have a quick chat about this week's sponsor, Artem Strap.
Let's get right into it. Australia's own Artem makes some of the best sailcloth straps we've seen. Period.
Sailcloth straps are great. They offer a casual look and they won't get ruined by water. Too often I find they're cheap, perhaps even downright nasty, or that they come on like super high-end pieces that are brand specific. Artem offers something different. They're supple right out of the box and the finish is excellent and they have a feel on the wrist that I find lovely. I currently have an Artem strap on my Bremont as well as my Nomos Ahoy, and I have not taken them off since I got them. Andy, what makes a great sailcloth strap?
That's a good question, Felix. There is a bit of a secret sauce in Artem straps, but we do know that they have a synthetic upper with an underside that is a mix of cowhide sealed with rubber to provide a smooth and water-resistant seal on the surface that touches your wrist. These high-quality materials and the attention to detail mean that it has a really pleasing satin sheen that conforms well on the wrist and, offers that water resistance.
It's the smooth underside that sells it for me, Andy. Artem currently offer black straps with white, grey, or black stitching in widths from 19 millimeters all the way up to 23. So that's 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 millimeters, as well as a few lengths. They have some exciting updates in development too. Stay tuned for those.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Artem do in 2022. But Felix, do not forget the buckles. They offer a few different buckle styles which live up to that same quality we've mentioned of the straps, and that includes a really solid deploying option.
Yeah, speaking of the deployments, bit of a new thing out of the gate for them. Check out the new style sailcloth that is reminiscent of Amiga's canvas strap. Comes with no keepers, which a lot of people will like, and that makes it tailor-made for that deployant buckle.
Love it. To find out more about Artem's wonderful sailcloth straps, head to artemstraps.com. That is ARTEM straps.com.
Love it, Andy. Let's get back to the show.
All right, Felix. Lovely work from Artem. Check them out. It is now time for it's time for dinner. The main course. James McVey.
Is it? Hang on. Is it the main course or is it just a snack?
He's the full 9-course meal. Great guy. It's got some interesting watches we're going to talk about. Everything from G-Shock to Halios to Nomos, not to Nomos, to Rolex to even some Bremont in the mix. We're going to hear what Steve's up to. Going to hear all sorts of interesting stuff. So
I think now he has to get a Nomos next. Let's get him.
He needs a Nomos.
Convince him.
Yeah, we'll convince him. I'll just play him some of our previous campaigns. All right, Felix, James McVey from the Vamps is joining us now. James McVey, welcome back. What's been happening in your life?
Thanks for having me. I mean, first of all, I think it's important as I juggle watches in my hand and try and, oh God, no, they're everywhere. I was looking when I last came on the podcast and in my mind, it was like years and years ago, but it was actually only, I think, October 2020, which is really bizarre for me because mentally I felt I came on the podcast in the infancy stages of my watch obsession. So I thought it would be a long time ago. And actually, I like listening back to that initial episode because you can see how new I am to it. I didn't know anything really. And I was a victim, I think, of buying, my first watch that I bought was a Submariner. And I'm very, very happy it was. But, I think I'd also recently picked up the Tudor Black Bay 58, and we spoke about that a little bit, but I didn't really know much about it, and I think I fell into that trap of, okay, what shall I get? I was listening to MVP Steve, who's now my father-in-law, and he got one, and I thought, yeah, I'll get one too. But now, that watch in particular, the Black Bay, the appreciation I have for that is something that I never thought possible, and it's interesting how far I feel I've come on this journey of watch discovery and satisfaction of having something on my wrist. So I guess it's sort of credit to you guys and thanks for getting me hooked.
I think we've probably got to give all the credit to MVP Steve. So let's get that out of the way early. So that's been a year, 2 years almost. I don't know, a year and a half, whatever it is. Yeah. What's the main thing you think you've learned?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think, I wanted to ask you at some point during this how the explosion of the watch community makes you feel, because I think on one hand I would think, if this is something that you guys, which I know the pair of you and a lot of people listening to this have been huge fans and supporters of the industry for years and years and years, and then all of a sudden there's loads of new people, that like an influx of noobs, which I imagine initially is frustrating, but actually now I think maybe it's nice because there's more people talking about it. And I think with me, I've gone through, my own journey with watches. And initially it was, I only knew a few brands. And actually, it's funny. I remember like relatively recently when I bought the engagement ring for my wife, they were also a Patek dealer, and I didn't even know what Patek was, and I was looking at the watch. So yeah, they were all right. Don't know anything about them, but when we went to buy the wedding ring from the same place, it was a whole new thing. So I think I've learnt a degree of things that I never thought I would, but actually my fascination with micro brands and things that are slightly different. I'm not really. I mean, ironically, my last watch was a Rolex that I bought, but I'm looking at other things now. I find myself watching half-an-hour videos on, the top 7 micro brands of 2021, and I'm fascinated by that. I've realized that it's not just about the monetary value of something, often just having a slight different story, or if it's an independent guy like Jason from Halios, for example, building stuff in Canada kind of on his own or with a bit of help from 1 or 2 other people. I love that sort of personal touch that some brands offer now.
That's very cool, James. And it's good to see. I think we can probably take a little bit of credit for escalating the addiction. Now, you did just mention MVP Steve officially, legally became your father-in-law.
Yes.
So congratulations on the wedding. I think that's a good place to start because it's probably been the most significant moment of your life since we last talked. But you can tell me otherwise. You had a special wedding watch. Why don't we start there?
I did, and actually, as you said that, then I was like, "Oh God, what did I wear?" And then, then I remembered. So I think Andy actually probably. I mean, I'd heard of Bremont just on the social media on this. How old did I sound then? On the social media, on the dial-up connection,
on MySpace.
Yeah, on MySpace. Oh God, that genuinely. So I knew of Bremont, but didn't know more than maybe Andy posting a picture on Instagram, or I've got a few mutual friends. There's a guy called Patrick Droney who's a Nashville-based singer-songwriter that I know Andy knows well, and he's been sort of a friend of Bremont for a while. There's also a couple of guys, Tom Howard, a gentleman racer who is big into watches, big into Bremont, and so I basically I'd known of them for a while, but Andy sort of linked us, and I've just built a sort of friendship with Nick and Giles and Claire and everyone there, and they very kindly lent me an H4 Hercules for the wedding, which was amazing, and I'd never worn a gold watch at all, and it was. I think it's 43 mil, I think. So slightly larger than, you asked me earlier what I've sort of like the journey I've had on watches. And I think everyone sort of figures out in their mind what they think the perfect millimeter case is for them. And I thought it was sort of somewhere between 40 and 41, but I'm pretty sure the H4 is 43. So it was large, but I loved it. And I think having watches in your mind to commemorate moments is something, again, that I've learnt. Each edition that I've made or added to my collection over the last couple of years has marked out something quite important for my life.
I mean, that's wearing a gold watch to a wedding is a good flex. Good flex on a big day. I find that really interesting because you often get that sort of discussion around, I'm going to get a wedding watch. I'm going to, a wedding is a day, I think, where a lot of people care about the details really explicitly, like the car you go to the wedding is a big deal, the suit, what your best men are wearing, all that sort of stuff is really often specific. Like maybe a lot of people are like, oh yeah, you just wear a black suit, you'll be fine. Whereas other people go to the other degree of like this, it's got to be really specific. Everything has to be perfect. Which camp did you fall into?
I was quite particular on a few things. So, for example, the wedding car for Kirsty was the last ever Defender Heritage Edition made. So it's the newer. Well, I say newer, not the newest. The older shape, but one of the newer ones. I think it's
2015 or
16.
yeah, around I think 16. Yeah. So, and the guy that I know at Land Rover, who sort of manages the PR relationships, very kindly, that was his vehicle. He has a couple of Land Rovers, and he kindly drove down from the Midlands and took Kirsty and MVP Steve to the castle in that. So that was lovely. I was very sort of adamant I wanted something genuinely, something that Kirsty and I share as a passion, which is Land Rover and driving and the outdoors. And I think that was fitting. From the suit perspective, again, I thought Kirsty gave me two things to be in charge of. It was my suit and the music, and I ruined. Well, I didn't. Well, I did mess up with both. We did a. The Vamps did the autumn winter campaign for a company called Ben Sherman. I'm a big fan of that brand. Really cool. And they very kindly offered to dress me. Sorry, my dog is chasing her ball around the front room. Moochie, on your bed now. Get on your bed now. She does this thing where she never plays with anything unless something different's happening. So she's trying to show off in front of me because she knows I'm speaking to someone, but she doesn't know where you are.
A little bit of jealousy.
Anyway, so, yeah, literally. So I had worked with a really cool tailor, a guy that does all of the royal family, and it was brilliant, an amazing experience. I'd never really been sort of measured for a customized suit before, so that was a brilliant process. However, the issue was the pandemic, I think, hugely impacted this. It resulted in the suits not arriving until 2 days before the wedding.
Stressful.
Which was really, really stressful. And a few things, nothing that Ben Sherman did led to this, but various things along the way meant that a couple of them turned up that didn't fit perfectly. So it was a last minute run around to my hometown. There was like these two random I guess they were tailors that we had
alterations.
Alterers in my hometown that we had to go to last minute, and it was a bit crazy. But I think people always have said to me that one thing will go wrong on the day. Luckily, nothing went wrong on the actual day for us. It was just a few last minute hurdles to jump over. But yeah, I think I was. The aesthetic of the wedding is something that we thought about, but I think not in a way that we wanted to shout like a notion of vanity. It was mainly I know everyone says this, but we did only want to get married for once, and we got married in a part of the world that we love, and it just meant that actually resulted in quite an opulent looking castle, which makes us feel very extra. But it was worth it, and especially after the year delay of the pandemic, we had to postpone, and I think once we'd locked in on that, we were set on getting married there, whatever the cost.
I love it. And how did you mess up the music?
So I asked a couple of my friends if they would perform, because there were a lot of musicians in attendance at the wedding, obviously, and we didn't want to hire a band that we didn't know, because it might be slightly awkward for them.
Man, that would be a rough gig if you're like, the local wedding singer. Imagine.
I know. So yeah, we decided that we wanted to use some friends. However, when the wedding got postponed, I texted the guy saying, right, the date's changing to this date. I probably should have specified the year that it was changing to. However, that said, the original wedding date was November the 7th, and I texted him saying we're moving our wedding date to October the 30th. And this was just following the announcement in the UK that we couldn't have weddings at all. You would like to think that the presumption would be that that it was the following year, but look, that was my bad. And then obviously when time came round to it, I text the guy a couple months before the wedding, and he said, "No, sorry, we're fully booked." So I might have had. Can you imagine my face? I was reading this text, and we were all sat round. It was like a family getaway somewhere, and I was looking at Kirsty like, how the hell am I going to say this? It was so awkward. And I said, "Yeah, we might have an issue." Then luckily we this sounds like I'm very posh. We were invited to the Dorchester Hotel in the summer for they hosted us for a dinner, and there was a band. It was called like summer, like Malto Music Summer. So they had this band that would be in residence and would play every weekend, whatever. Turns out the band were absolutely incredible, and I asked them if they would consider doing the wedding, and bizarrely, because they don't typically do weddings, they kind of move in the hospitality circles where they go around the world and just play at these like quite highbrow events and things. They had most of their kind of weekends that far in advance free, so we had them, and they were amazing. They were very open to letting the Vamps use their instruments, which was a struggle for me because they didn't actually have a guitarist. It was a bass player, drummer, and piano player. So I sort of stood on stage awkwardly and tried to sing backing vocals. It was actually really bad, but looking back now, perfect band and perfect weekend.
I think these all sound like great wedding stories to tell, well into the future. Like if everything like is smooth, like how was your wedding? Oh, it was fine. Nothing went wrong. That's a boring story in 20 years' time. This is drama. I'm loving it.
I know. Just a post-COVID UK nearly, and it all came together nicely. Well, so it was the Hercules Bremont for the day.
Yeah.
Since we last spoke, you have picked up a Bremont though. So the Hawking.
Yeah. Yes.
What trees is that?
Yeah. So I still can't believe that I have one, and I was looking online just yesterday at what people were saying about it, because I got that watch, and then other than looking at it myself, I've not sort of sought out. I almost think when you buy things, or when you acquire things, I personally get, like, say for example, I've just ordered the new Land Rover Defender P400E, so the plug-in hybrid.
Love it.
Thank you. I'm terrified to look at reviews now I've committed to it. Do you know what I mean by that? So say I don't know, say you're really excited about a new Daytona comes out, and you're like, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger, I'm doing it. And then you go online and then you know, because you think I'm going to join this Daytona fan club, and then everyone's slating it. So I've not done that with any actually of the watches that I've acquired since we last spoke. So I got the Hawking, but I was looking, and someone yesterday said that they think it's the best release from Bremont that they've seen, and I didn't know at the time, but I think now I completely agree. I think there's just so much excitement around that, and I find myself looking at it every, like, when I have like a spare few minutes waiting for a tube or a bus or whatever, but not just the dial, you know. If you turn it round, you keep on discovering more things. And what I love about the Bremont is the Hawking is it's 41 mil, so it's very easy to wear. And you just there's so many little details, even things like the central dial resembles a black hole, which I didn't even really realize until recently. And it's got, you know, the date just looks awesome. I know that having dates on watches is a little bit of a divisive subject for many people, but I think they do it really, really well. And also there's the retrograde seconds function that sort of flips back, and I don't really like it. It fascinates me how they can do that. It's amazing. And even things like I don't know how much people know about the Hawking, but basically it's the collaboration between Bremont and Stephen Hawking, if people hadn't figured now. And there's a few little things that have that direct connection to Stephen Hawking. So there's the serial number written on a piece of paper on the back that is from a paper that Hawking was part of, which is referred to as the nuts and bolts of gravity, which is like that's just crazy. And there's also 3 little sort of pieces of wood from Stephen Hawking's desk. And I know that a lot of people maybe in the watch community say that that's just like maybe like those sort of things are gimmicky or whatever, but for me, I love that. I think that's fascinating. There's also like a little slither of meteorite in there, and it's that for me, that's just interesting. Stephen Hawking made such a lasting impression around the world, and to have like a little piece of that journey, just it's brilliant for me, and that's kind of what I love about that watch. It's I realized when I got it that if I wasn't careful, it would sit in its box and never be worn. It came on an alligator strap that I find it really like ironic that alligator straps aren't waterproof, and I know it's how they treat them, but I just always think that's kind of weird. So I traded it out for I had a black rubber strap on it, and now I have this like sort of greeny suede strap on, and I wear the Hawking. It's almost my daily watch. I've battered it. It's already got quite a few nicks in it, but I said that watch has to be worn. I love it. I want people to see it and enjoy it with me, and it's a conversation starter. No matter which boutique I go into, I went with Steve into. I think we were looking at maybe some Seiko like a couple months ago, and I had that on, and the guy knew all about it, and I wore it in Heathrow Terminal 5 when I was going to Nashville a few months ago, and the guy that was working in the Rolex boutique knew of the Hawking, and I love stuff like that. I love those conversation starter watches.
Yeah, I mean, it is cool, and you're absolutely right. There's 2 things that you were, talking about there that really sort of rang true with me. One, retrograde small seconds, they're just cool, like
crazy.
And you're fascinated by it. I'm still fascinated by it. And it's that doesn't go away. I don't think that's if you ever get bored of that sort of mechanical coolness, you've got to find something else to do with your life. And the other one is like that sort of gimmick element. Like, yeah, it's a bit of wood from a desk, and that's it's maybe a little bit extra, but I don't think that's a bad thing. Like,
no,
it's if you sort of get into someone like Stephen Hawking, that's great and that's special, and that makes everyone knows about it and is happy to talk about it. If you don't care, like, move on, get something else. Like, just that's you don't have to hate on people for that. But I reckon it's great that you wear it as well. That's absolutely true. You have to you can't be too precious about these things. You got to knock them around a bit.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in, like, Andy forwarded me a pic of your watch collection, and I'm going to pull it up.
Oh, I don't know which one you've got. It's probably not.
No. There's one, and it's got it looks like a dive watch with sort of a brown strap and like a black bezel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea
Peren.
what that is.
Peren.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's interesting actually that you say black dial, because actually in the light it's bluey, sort of turquoisey.
Yeah.
So this is another Steve suggestion. So as I've only been into watches. I would say really the last 18 months. I think the lockdown meant that I could plow a lot of time into watches. So when he said to me that this Peren draws inspiration from the Tornek Rayville divers, I didn't know what that meant, and so I just thought I saw this, and it was it's under £400, and I was like, what, whatever, cool, I'll pull the trigger on that, and I'll see. But since I think we ordered them about a year ago, and by the time it turned up just before Christmas, but in that year, my fascination with microbrands and things like that, independent brands, as I said, grew. So it's made in Transylvania. Well, no, sorry, it's made. Well, it says Swiss made, but the company Peren is Transylvanian. And this particular model is called the Nera
Vamps
Rogue.
connection.
Yeah,
The Vamps. Oh,
The
yeah.
Vamps.
There we go. There we go.
Here
But
we
you know,
are.
what's interesting about it is, you know, you think for, I think it's 380 quid or something. You think for that. It's very hit and miss with some of these things when you've never heard of the company and you don't know what you're going to end up with, right? It's 39 mil, so slightly smaller than everything else I have. But what I find interesting is it actually doesn't feel like it's naff. Like it's got a slight bit of weight to it, and this, when you move the bezel,
sounds
it's actually
good.
got, like, it feels like an actual, it doesn't feel like it's going to fall apart, right? You know, it is water resistant. You're meant to have it on the NATO. I ordered it with the leather strap and the NATO. I've just not traded it out yet. But I thought this would be one of those watches that I would buy, think, oh, that's fun, and then forget about it, leave it behind. But it's got quite a lot of wrist time. As I say, it doesn't feel bad. The lugs are really nice and smooth. It just, I don't know, it's just fine. Like, I don't feel like I'm relegating my standards by wearing this watch. And I like things that not you know, it's limited, I think, to 300 pieces, maybe. I don't know if I've just made that up, but it's definitely limited, whether it's 300 or 500. But it's the sort of thing that you could wear to a red bar or even take into a boutique and people would be interested in it. So yeah, that was one of my latest additions and I don't regret it.
I love to hear it. I mean, look, does MVP Steve ever miss?
No, he doesn't, to be fair. And you know, he's the reason for, the Black Bay, the reason that I got this Peren. He's also, if we're speaking about slightly different watches, he's the reason that I got into Halios originally, and I know, and I'm holding a Seaforth, which Andy sent me to borrow probably over a year ago now, and that kind of carries on that theme of having something that is not just I mean, as great as like GMT Master 2s are, it's not another of them, or, you know, it's not just a standard thing. You know, I've got a watch. I've got a few watches that most people probably don't know about, granted, but don't own, and I think that's fascinating. So yeah, I'm loving this kind of micro brand, personal touch feel to watchmaking that seems to be creeping ever closer every year.
Well, you've got a bit of everything there. The Halios is a lovely watch. James, how's the patina? Obviously, it's that bronze case. How's the patina kind of coming along in the year and a half?
Yeah, it's good, mate. And I think to be fair, I have worn it a lot, but because it's yours, I'm scared to like wear it how I wear watches. Like I like to really beat them up. So it's
go for it.
You say that now. I'll take it to Nashville next week and
good.
swim with it or something. I probably will. But I love this because, well, Halios, because I genuinely don't think Jason knows how good his stuff is. I have no idea how he makes any money from it, because you could tell me that this watch was like £2,000 and I'd probably believe you. It's just it fascinates me how he gets away with it. And this particular Seaforth has is numbered 666, Andy, which I absolutely love. I think it's adds another thing. I also noticed that you haven't taken the sticker off the back. I thought I'd like scratched it really bad, and I was like, "What have I done?" But the sticker's still on it, so it's. I know you were,
but I'll get it off you.
Please, you're never getting. No, you will get this back. But I love the fact that, like, you know, you shipping it to me or me shipping it back to you probably is about half the value of the retail of one of these watches. But it doesn't feel like that. It feels, as I say, like a couple grand's worth, and it stands up against some of my other watches, and I love that.
I love it. Well, I'm very happy to hear that it's patinaing nicely. But yeah, please take it to Nashville. It needs to explore the world. Someone needs to come get it from you. Okay, so we've got the Independence covered nicely, but you do have a couple of fun G-Shocks. Let's talk about that new one, that collab piece that I can see has arrived. Must have arrived just weeks ago.
Well, I was going to actually jump in before we do that one with the G-Shock that you helped me acquire, Andy.
Yes.
Because that was my first ever G-Shock.
Really?
Basically, yeah. Felix and anyone else listening, I wanted to get a G-Shock, but kind of running on the same theme as the Hawkin and even the Peren and the Halios. I wanted something that was slightly different. So I decided to get an Australian only release G-Shock,
Sure.
and it was in partnership with. Am I right? It's the Surf Life Saving Australia.
Yeah.
And it's like a GLX 5600 SLS, I think 7D or something like that. And it it's just like a small, easy to wear G-Shock. But again, it's just got that slight asterisk after it because it's not something that is available in the UK. And again, I got one for Steve as well for, I think it was his birthday or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we picked up two, but again, I think the cost of shipping them were probably not far off the price of the watch. But that was the first one, and it comes with like a tide and moon graph. It's obviously meant for surfing, which is completely useless to me. I've never surfed, and I don't know how any of that stuff works. But that was the first G-Shock, which gets a lot of wrist time in the summer. I think it's got. I mean, I can send pictures, but it's kind of white with this very surfery, beachy red and yellow, and it's great. So that kind of opened the door into G-Shock, and then that leads me on to the penultimate watch that's come into the collection, which is the second John Mayer and Hodinkee Casio collab, which I'm really excited. I was really excited to acquire. I missed out on the first one because, primarily because I think the first one sold out in about 10 minutes. But I kind of, stupid. And here's my naivety. When I first kind of got into, I mean, I think, am I right? Was it towards the end of 2020 that one came out, the first one?
Yeah, would have.
Sounds right.
Yeah, that feels about right.
Yeah.
2020.
So it was. I still was quite young in the game in that regard, and I presumed that it's out, but I can probably get one. Like, fine, I'll have a look. And then I was looking that they were going for like over $1,000 or whatever, and I was like, that's kind of crazy. So I realized if another one was ever going to come along, I was going to get on it early. So I was shooting a Belgium Netflix World War II documentary I was in the Omaha Beach Cemetery, and I got a bit random as I do, and I got an email from Hodinkee saying because I shared when it came out, I said this is great, cool, and they said, look, if you want, we could maybe put you on the cancellation list to see if anything comes in. Because I really wanted, when I tried to get it, I missed it because I was in the middle of filming, and I was there on the website, but it just didn't go through, and I was gutted. And when I got that email asking if I wanted to go on that cancellation list, I thought that they're just being nice because there's no way that anyone's going to send any of these back. Thank you, that's great. But then within like a day or something, someone had given. Returned one, and then a week or two later, mine turned up, and I was over the moon about it. And it's a bit of a conversation starter. It's quite big, because compared to the other that I have, it's a different shape. But this one did sell out though, I think in 5 minutes, which is crazy, and it just means that I feel extra lucky. But I think it is big, but it's comfortable with the. Well, I don't even know if it is rubber. Is it rubber or like plastic? I don't know what they say, but it's easy to wear. And in the summer, it'll be a conversation starter.
Quick question, and this is maybe slightly deviating from the script a little bit. So John Mayer's got a G-Shock. We've chatted to some Aussie hip hop legends, Hilltop Hoods, that have had a G-Shock.
Okay.
Listen to some, mate.
I think Hilltop Hoods have got one too, don't they? Anyway,
maybe
awkward. Sorry, G-Shock and
Sorry, Cassio. It's an SO.
Anyway, Hilltop Woods should definitely have one. What if the Vamps ever had a G-Shock? What would that look like?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Oof. I think I'd first of all have to get the other boys into watches. I know that our singer Brad sort of there, but the other two are sadly lost. That said,
you can't
I was
like a G-Shock. Everyone loves a G-Shock.
No, I know, and I was in. I was going to say I was in my studio. It's not a studio. It's a second bedroom that has. It doesn't even have speakers, but it's the only place in my flat that I'm allowed to hang Vamps memorabilia. Because my wife thinks that it's very arrogant to have them down the hall, and it's fine. It's fine. I get it, but we've been very lucky with the Vamps that we, I've probably got 20 plaques of achievement of selling things. Anyway, I was looking at one of them yesterday, and I noticed on our first album cycle, on one of the plaques from, it must have been 2012, that photo shoot was, our bass player Connor is wearing, I'm not sure, it's a Casio of sorts, and I was like, wow, all these years before I had any care for watches or anything Casio or whatever, he was rocking it before. It was the only one out of the four of us had anything on his wrist. So there might be a glimmer of hope there.
He's the
I
OG.
think if it is the OG. I think if we were going to do something, I think it would have to be instrument influenced. Maybe I kind of like, everyone thinks like the Vamps is named that because of like a connection with like Twilight or vampires or something, which it absolutely isn't. But if we run with that theme for a second, that could be a pretty fun looking watch. So I don't know, the black, what would you say would be like black, white, and like red? Maybe that'd be quite a vibey thing. I don't know which shape we do though, because I'm not sure. I don't know, but I think black, white, red, with absolutely no surf style function, because that would be useless. Mate, here we go. This is it. Can we find a way of getting a guitar tuner onto a G-Shock?
That'd be cool.
That would be me.
I'm thinking you change the alarm.
Oh yeah,
from a beep 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 to like I've been up all night.
Let's go.
Or maybe you just can't set an alarm because you never go to sleep.
There we go.
So Casio UK, you've got our details, and we can pass you on to James to make this happen. 2023,
please.
A G-Shock, that'd be cool. Well, that's very cool. So we've got the full spectrum covered nearly.
Nearly.
I do remember I was telling Felix this before when you said, "Hey, I'm ready to come back on."
Yeah,
James. Obviously, we're good friends. We talk all the time, probably every day.
I don't know about that. I don't know about good friends.
Okay, best friends. Wow.
No, you know what? Wait a sec. You are. You know when you go on WhatsApp and you go to like forward something, you are the top person on my list. So I speak to you the most out of everyone on WhatsApp.
Jeez.
There we go.
That's
go on.
All right. Sorry, Steve. And there's been a good reason that you haven't come back on the podcast in that year and a half, and it was a commitment you made years ago. You said, "I'm not going to come back until I've got the watch I really want. I'll come back and I can talk about it, but I'm not going to come back on until then." And was it this year or end of last year? It was early this year, right? You picked up your baby, your Grail,
mate. Yeah. So it was only 3 weeks ago. When I started, again, in my naivety of watches in the early days, I said and God, how different it was from like a price point perspective. But I was in the market originally for either. Well, really, I did want a Rolex Explorer 2 as my first watch. I went to the Seychelles it was actually really cheesy, but I presented like a daytime show competition segment. So it was like, cool, blah, 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 and you could win. And then it cut to me in the Seychelles, and I'm like, you could come to the Seychelles and blah, blah, blah.
Sounds amazing.
It sounds amazing, but I was only there for 2 days. They put me in the honeymoon suite, but I was on my own on this like 5-star resort. I mean, there was like a small camera crew that I didn't know, but I was in like the most luxurious honeymoon suite. It was just like stupid, but I was on my own. Anyway, I'd gone through. We'd connected via Dubai, and I was just wandering around, and the flight was delayed by 24 hours. So we ended up having like a day in Dubai, and I was walking around, and that was one of the early early kind of experiences being around a lot of watches. And as I say, it was at a time when there was a lot more available. You could actually go into Rolex and buy a watch. And the Explorer 2 wasn't one of the ones I saw, but there were so many different things that I was thinking, okay, maybe I should buy a Rolex for my first watch. I mean, how many people say that? And it came at a time when I was luckily quite busy. I'd just done another big TV show and had a little bit of spare cash. So I actually I've never said this actually last time, but I was very, very close to getting a date just on that connection thing. I thought that was really cool. I didn't know literally nothing about Rolex, and I thought that was cool, but I didn't for various reasons. But when I was in the Seychelles, I did some swimming, and I was thinking, I want to get a watch that isn't, just the cliche. I didn't want anything that was like too blingy. I wanted something that I could swim in and I could really beat it up, and it would sort of reflect that part of my life that I'm proud of, being outside and trying to, I don't know, do things slightly outside the box. So I said, right, I think it should be either a Submariner or an Explorer 2. I got home from that trip. There was nothing, sadly, in the airport on the way back that I probably would have, I would have, if there had been one there, I would have bought it there and then, but there wasn't. Came back, did a little bit of research. Well, I say research. I think it was just Chrono 24 scrolling. I literally had no idea what I was doing. And I said, no, I want to get an Explorer 2 actually, because I liked how, and this was obviously not the latest model. So I was looking in 2018. So it was, well, very similar to this latest model, but barely nothing changed. But I didn't know any authorized dealers or anything like that. It was literally texting round, and I had a mate who probably quite dodgy actually thinking about it now, but I was like, what are you selling? Because he's always selling watches, and I was like, I don't know. And it was always like, box papers, stickers on, and I was like, looking now, like that's kind of like, how does he get this? Anyway, I said, look, I really want to get an Explorer 2. And for some reasons, I mean, even though back then, even though this was only a few years ago, they were like probably £4,500 on the secondary market, which is kind of crazy. But there was just no Explorer 2s. No one wanted them. There was no desirability about having an Explorer 2 at all. And he said, no, but I've got this. And it was the Submariner that I bought. And I went to a cafe in Notting Hill with literally a bag of cash and just swapped, which is kind of crazy. But I always wanted the Explorer 2, and I tried to tell myself the Submariner ticked that box. And look, I love my Submariner. I actually bought it the day of my engagement party with Kirsty, and that might not sound like a big deal, but I'm an antisocial, quite moody man. So hosting a party, that's a big deal for me. So I got the watch to commemorate that, and that's cool. But ever since, I'm sure that you guys have it too. If when you set your sights on something, there's that fascination, and that chase becomes almost more exciting than owning it. So I said, and bear in mind, getting the Submariner then, it was probably double the price of the Explorer 2 back then. So I said to myself, look, I'm going to have to wait a long time now before I can justify buying an Explorer 2. But then in that sort of 2-year interim period, I really got into researching it. I went through all the references from the 70s, which I absolutely love. And then there was that my absolute favorite is, I think is it the 16550 with the creamy sort of dial, that fascinated Beautiful. By that, loved it. Oh god, it gets me. And all the way through. And I said to myself, after the wedding, I'm going to set my sights on that. I'm going to substitute the wedding fund with the Explorer 2 fund, and I'm just going to do it when it happens. And I was but also bear in mind, this coincided with the pandemic, where for various reasons, watch prices, you're now looking almost triple that what that Explorer would have cost when I wanted it first time around. The secondary market, what we're up to, probably about £11,000 really.
Wow.
Which is insane. I was and I kind of said, look, I'll save up. It'll take me a long time, but I'll save for that. And then I love how sort of stars align and things, but I met through a mutual friend someone like an authorized dealer. And genuine, it's not just like a blagging thing. Oh, you send him a text and hope. It's like I built a relationship, and I said, look, I want to put my name down for an Explorer 2. I know I may wait. I don't know what the wait times are for you guys now, but you're talking for a Daytona 2 years probably, and that's if you can get on the certain well, if you can get on the list and stuff and wait, that people want watches now for various reasons. So I thought maybe it'll take a while. And the only reason that I was able to afford it sooner is because luckily my number came up. I could get one for retail, and it came. Yeah, I waited a few months for it, and I wasn't expecting it. And I went in to the dealership just to say hey to my friend. He didn't tell me it had come in. He texted, "Oh yeah, not in a bad way." He'd been away on holiday. I texted him on a Monday saying, "I might be in on the weekend. Are you about?" He didn't reply, and then he texted me on the Saturday when I was already in town. He said, "Yeah, maybe you should pop in, mate," because he'd come into the office that day and seen that my watch had turned up. So instead of calling me saying it's here, he'd seen that I was already in town and said, "Yeah, just come down and say hi." And so we went, and then I always like asking if he's got anything like interesting, sort of behind the desk or something, and he brought out this Explorer, and I thought it was for someone else, and he said, "Oh well, what do you think?" And that was it. And I think it was bizarre, kind of like I said before, the chase and the excitement and the hours you spend on YouTube watching reviews of the different references and the stories behind each. That is the excitement. And I was slightly concerned that when I eventually got it, the magic would die and the curtain would drop and it'd be like, oh, it's just a watch. But actually, I've worn it every day since, and it's coming up 3 weeks. And I'm over the moon with it. It's everything that I wanted and more. And I love the fact that it's not the go-to Rolex. It's not the show off. It's I love Daytonas, but it's not a Daytona, and I'm happy wearing this. And I said to myself, this is not going to sit in my wardrobe. I will take this around the world, and I'm going to beat it up. And it's perfect. So that I think that's kind of, I feel a sense of satisfaction and completion on this journey. Now I have it in my hand.
That's great. And I mean, part of me does wonder how long you're going to be happy until you sort of start, checking Chrono 24 again for the next watch. And I
know.
I can't wait to know what that is.
Well, I can give you a little hint. I have
You're
a
already
feeling
there.
well, I have a feeling I need to get every Explorer that's ever been made, Explorer 2 that's ever been released. Which, when we start getting back into those earlier ones, I'm looking at a lot of cash. Whether that is going to be the next step for me, I can see that being like a life goal.
Yeah.
I think as we said before, some of the smaller sort of brands and new things coming through excite me more. I can't see myself buying another £10,000 watch anytime soon, but you never know what's gonna come along. I have a bizarre fascination with like Tudor chronographs. Like I don't know why. I just I know that loads of people will be like, well, why wouldn't you just wait for the Rolex Daytona? But there's just, I don't know. I don't know why I like what I like, but some things come along and I'm like, I really like that. And I think now I've ticked that box. I've completed that saga of the Explorer 2. Hopefully I can now view watches in a different way where I'm not thinking, oh, well, that's like a third of an Explorer 2. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to see what happens.
It's a good saga.
Yeah. You mentioned this a little bit before, and I'm just having a little cheeky scroll through your Instagram. And I've spotted you having a little ride on what appears to be a tiny armored car.
Yeah.
And he said you were in Belgium doing something around D-Day and your grandfather's involvement.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
So that was in. So it's for Belgium Netflix and the Netherlands Netflix, and it's a Belgium film crew and director. But we were filming in France there's a 10-part Netflix documentary that is called Voices of Liberation, which I'm presenting one of the 10, and each episode's presented by someone, I guess, in the public eye who has a direct connection to the Second World War, and it follows the journey from D-Day right through to liberation. But at the crux of the episodes are letters from the time. So the letters vary from civilians, soldiers, generals, everyone. And what the aim of the documentary is to present the story of the Second World War in a way that doesn't turn off younger people. I mean, I love history; it's my favorite thing. But a lot of these documentaries, people just don't really get excited about. You're a 17-year-old guy, and you're like, well, I'm a bit bored of that. But we're presenting an alternative where it's hopefully exciting. And for me, I'd never. I went to Normandy when I was probably 6 or 7, but it was long before I had the interest in the Second World War. Going back now at the age of 28, and I'm being on the very beach that my great granddad. So my great granddad was a sapper in the Royal Engineers, and he went on. Well, he did loads of things, but I think he was Juno Beach, and he was helping the Canadians. So actually, was it gold? Now you're testing me. God, I went on all of them, and it's hard to. He escorted the Canadians, mainly getting off and on the. He would help the tanks get off from the destroyers and stuff, and on the beach, and then would help do that. But then he went on from there, went through France, through Belgium, through the Netherlands, into Germany, and then back to the Netherlands. And I think being on that very place where he was, and all those people, and what was crazy, like sobering for me, is the average age was quite young for a lot of these soldiers. Some of the British were slightly older because they were professional soldiers, but when you had the volunteers, and you're looking at Omaha Beach or whatever, and most people were like early 20s, it's just it blew me away. So that documentary, I believe, is coming out in May. Whether or not it'll be available to the representative Netflixes around the world, I'm not sure. I hope so, but yeah, Belgium and Netherlands Netflix, I think, in May.
This week's sponsor is ExpressVPN.
Yeah.
I wish we need some of that ExpressVPN money there, Felix.
I'd be happy with Nord.
We'll catch it. I'll get you to film it and send it to me. You can have a live stream party.
We transfer it.
We transfer. Okay, so you mentioned you've been moving to the Explorer 2 non-stop for the last 3 weeks. Obviously, you live in London, and all we hear as Aussies is how dangerous London is getting for Rolex and luxury watch wearers. Is it a safety concern for you? Is it as bad as the media says?
Yeah, it's definitely as bad to the extent that, well, I mean, my Submariner has probably, actually, I have never worn the Submariner for anything that's not been like a photo shoot for the Vamps or something where I've literally been picked up from my front door in a car. I would never in the summer walk around with that on my wrist. And I think there's something about, Submariner GMT2s or Datejust or whatever that screams Rolex. And I think like the Explorer 2 maybe doesn't in the same way, but the crime is so bad, and there's a genuine threat that, I had a coffee with a friend of mine, massive watch guy called Fahim, who's a King Flum, I think, on Instagram. Yeah. He literally lives 2 rows down from me, and he says that he goes out with 2 watches on. He has his G-Shock on one wrist, and then something nice on, something that another. Well, not that G-Shocks aren't nice. No, let's not say nothing. But he might have, I don't know, like a Vacheron on the other arm, and he says that what would happen really in London, they'll say phone, watch, and what else? Probably bloody shoes if you're wearing night. If you've got like an Andy Green collection of shoes, you'll probably get them nicked as well. But you have to be vigilant, and you have to acknowledge that if you're not careful, then you could lose it. So I hate the fact that I have to make that conscious decision. Right, where am I going today? What am I doing? What should I wear on my wrist? And I'm trying my absolute best to not have that with the Explorer, but I don't wear it when I'm walking the dog around the street or whatever. So we'll see. But it's scary world, man. Scary world. I might get it. I was thinking if I got it engraved like on the back and it was something like James McVey's watch, do you reckon that they'd be able to sell it?
Sell it for more.
I sell it for more. I don't know about that.
Maybe get this as a fake Rolex.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me. I was watching a video the other day, and someone's dad has a fake watch for every one of their nice watches, and they wear the fake watch out and keep the nice one at home. Can you imagine the effort to try and find a good fake Explorer 2 that's like that stands up to the real one?
As well.
That's weird, isn't it?
I know.
That's the point.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, that's real. Please do look after your Explorer. I know your watch is meant to get beaten up, but don't get beaten up for your watch. I think there's
Felix.
There's some wordplay for you.
Wow.
So I think we're going to ask you next, James. We're coming to the end. We're coming to the end of our time together for 2022. And I want to know what you would suggest to Andy and to myself and to everyone listening that they can maybe read or consume or, I don't know, experience in that is not related to watches.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so I can't remember what I said last time, but I'm big into podcasts and history. So I've got a couple of podcasts, all of them are rated by a guy called Paul McGann, and he does something called Real Dictators, which is a podcast. I mean, it says what it doesn't, on the tin. He's got that, and then there's like a sister podcast that he also does called, I think it's called A Short History of, and so it's the same thing. So they basically encapsulate a whole story of like I don't know, like the moon landing, for example, and they will do the whole thing in an hour. But he does it. He's got such a enchanting voice, and they use the sound effects, and it feels like you're literally there. So I'd recommend something like that. I think what I've learned is I like listening or watching things that actually take something from. I feel that like social media typically takes things from me. So I like to put my time into podcasts where I can come away and I'll be like, oh, okay, I've now learned about 14th century knights jousting. That's cool, because I love that stuff. So I recommend something like that. I'm trying to think what I've been watching as well. I've just started Downton Abbey for the first time, right? Which loads of people, I know, like people, I'm that person out of the friendship group that hasn't watched a lot of things, like most films, most series I've not watched. So Downton Abbey is one of them.
I think getting married in a castle has changed you. Aspirations.
Absolutely. But yeah, I'd say like World War II in Colour is a Netflix one that's pretty easy to get on board with. But yeah, something educational for me, for sure.
Good recommendations, James. Thank you so much for joining Felix and I. We really appreciate your time.
Not at all. Thanks, guys. I love what you do. Please keep going.
Back at you.
Thanks, James. Thanks, of course, this week for Artem Straps. And if you want to find out more about, I don't know, James McVey's wedding, MVP Steve, anything else, you can hit up his Instagram, or you could email us.
Yes.
At otthepodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can hit us up on Instagram, Felix, ot.podcast on Instagram.
And of course, if you're already in our Discord, you probably know all this stuff already. So, as always, Andy, if people need to share their love of OT the podcast, we suggest doing it via skywriting, hot air balloon pamphlet drops,
5-star reviews,
spam, old-fashioned like junk mail in the letterbox. That's really
graffiti art. If you find a nice blank wall,
nice
at ot.podcast, just drop a tag for us.
Yeah, QR codes if you've really talented.
Guerrilla marketing, anything creative you can think of.
If you're an ad executive at like ad agency, B&T, something like that, just Clemenger, maybe just.
If you want to wrap a tram for us, we'll provide the artwork. Do the rest. If you got some sort of in-flight magazine,
I don't think they exist anymore. Let's wrap a plane. If you're Richard Branson,
just one plane, Richie. Just give us one. We'll do a deal. We'll do a plan, and we'll do like one of the Virgin Rail.
Swiss Air. We'll get the Geneva flight. God, that would be genius. All right, we're going to go, Andy, before this gets silly.
See you, mate.